Back at it again, live from the park. I'm your host, Cinematics, and we're coming back with episode 4. Today's episode is called Information Overload. Now, what is information overload all about? Basically, information overload is exactly what it sounds like. It's an overload of information. Being that we live in the information age now, it's very easy to have information accessible. It's not as difficult as it once was to get information. We used to have to go to libraries and go through encyclopedias and research and things like that. And now we just have social media, we have our cell phones, we have computers, laptops, smart books, even our cars now. Like, information is everywhere. We're constantly encoding and decoding information in our daily lives. It's very important to understand information overload because we're dealing with life in a time where we've never had this much information available to us. A lot of times we're not even thinking about how much information we're taking in our brain. Our brains are not naturally meant to handle so much pleasure, so much information, so much data all at once. Our brains are not naturally wired for that. And when we engage in these things, it can definitely come with a lot of drawbacks that we may or may not be aware of. How do we deal with information overload? Well, the first and most important thing that we can really do is to take breaks, social media breaks. When we take these social media breaks, the importance of it is because we constantly are engaged. We're constantly looking at our phone. We're constantly checking our email. We're constantly checking to see if somebody texts us. There's a phenomenon called phantom message or phantom calls where you feel like somebody's getting ready to call you. You know you heard it or you feel it right before it comes or whatever the case may be. That's because we're so in sync and so in tune with these gadgets that have really no harmonic vibration, if you will. They're just gadgets, just that. They're just an accessory, and we integrate with them, we interface with them, we make them a part of our lives. You know, like if you lose your cell phone, think about how much it feels painstaking, and it really messes with your psyche and your emotional stability when you lose your cell phone. Why? Because you're so attached to that. You have all the numbers, you have the pictures, you have messages, you have all of these things in there that you are deeply connected to, but in reality, you're not connected to any of those things. The pictures are stored up here. The messages are stored up here. Phone numbers, not so much, because now that we have these smartphones, we don't really remember numbers like how we used to. Information overload is a real thing that we got to be conscious of when we are going about in our everyday lives. A big thing would be to take social media breaks, because the social media breaks, they kind of help put things into perspective. They kind of help bring us back to reality and less in technology and data land, more in the reality in the actual physical realm where we exist at. So I got 4 bullet points for this one. Just things that we got to remember and keep in mind when we're dealing with information overload. The first thing is don't believe everything you see or read in media. That is a big proponent with dealing with information overload. Why? Because you cannot understand where the information's coming from. You don't know who's the source, who wrote it, is it true or is it not true? So just say, for instance, most recently at the time of the recording of this video, there was a post going around on Instagram where people were actually posting and reposting messages that stated that Instagram is not allowed to use their pictures for anything, for any type of purposes. And it turns out that was fake media. It was a fake post. And truth be told, most people didn't even understand when we signed up for all of these social media platforms. We signed up under the pretense and the agreement that we potentially are giving our data away to these companies, because once we post them publicly, they're no longer ours. They belong to the social media platform in which we posted it on. So when we post our pictures and videos on Facebook, you would think these videos belong to you because they're on your profile. But remember, you're using Facebook's platform. If you're going to use Facebook's platform, Facebook has, I don't want to say proprietary rights, but they have some rights over the stuff that they allow to be posted on their platform. So that's the first bullet point. The second bullet point is very connected to the first, is that you have to judge the validity of the sources of the information and what you're getting it from. So it's very hard to check these informational sources because you don't know if it's fake news, because fake news even comes from our real newscasts, such as CNN, NBC, and all of these places. But to judge the validity of things by checking for a credible source, a blue check does matter sometimes if it's newsworthy information. I'm not sure any other ways you would be able to do it because it's kind of hard now because information is all over the place. So it's no telling where it's coming from or whom the post originated from. The third bullet point that we're going to deal with is communication is important. So while we are dealing with information overload and we're in this information age and time, we still have to communicate. We still have to decode and encode information. But the importance of decoding and encoding this information is understanding which things to decode and encode, not every single thing we come across, because that is what leads to information overload. And last but not least, as I said earlier, take a break. To prevent social media overload or to prevent information overload, better put, it's wise to take a break sometimes. It could be a week, it could be a day, it could be a couple hours. I mean, more than likely let it be more than a day so that you can really get the effects of putting the medias down, putting the technology down for a little while. Go read a book, go work out, go be back in nature. Go do something different. Don't stay always typing away and being stuck on your cell phone. So that was our video today on information overload. Please make sure that you subscribe, Cinematics Media, YouTube. Check out my SoundCloud, Cinematics Music. I'll leave the links below. And yeah, that's about it. See you next time for the next video. And yeah, that's it.
Give me a brick, I get ghost and I'll be right back. With the Tommy, take your Keisha, make some nice stacks. You only wanna hear how the money talk. With 2 L's in the C, I make the money walk. Pay attention, Padawan, it's a different time. Dr. Seuss is gone, let me teach another rhyme. A Batman, a Robin Hood to make a better crime. I got a 5 that'll pop to make a better slime. Settle down, let the teacher speak. You still grind 7 days, but your product weak. I'm kicking down doors to change the status quo. Bon voyage, excuse my French, that's the Paris flow. Extraordinary gentleman, no average Joes. In the Hilton with a diva, make her grab her toes. Part of my explicitory rapping, just trying to find why the mass shooting happens. And if they passing laws while the people napping, I'ma take the fitted off, no capping. Ha.